Right, so as I said, we want to run our unit tests for this student repository against an in-memory database. We don't want to run the tests against our local database because the data produced by these unit tests, we don't want to keep them in our database. And luckily for us, we have this database called H2, and H2 is an open source SQL database, and you can use it as an in-memory database. So to set up this in our application to use it for testing, it's really straightforward. So if I open up IntelliJ, and in here open up project and then go to pom.xml, and what we're going to do is the following. So in here, it doesn't really matter where we add this, but let's just see. Right after the Spring Boot starter test, let's add a new dependency. So dependency, this will be H2, and then the group ID will be com dot and then h2.database. Now, if this is red for you, what I want you to do is just go to project and then open up pom.xml, right click. And then, oh, actually, before we do that, let's also set the scope for this as they have done in here. So the scope for this right here is test. Let's also do the same here. So scope and then test. Now open up the pom.xml, right click, and then go to Maven and then reload project. And that should sort this dependency out. So now that we have this dependency, what we need to do is to remember in here we have application.properties. So application.properties, and this in here connects to our local database, right? So our Postgres instance. So what we're going to do is the following. We're going to create a new folder under Java, so test and then Java, and we want the exact same thing right in here. So main Java resources, test Java, and we also want resources. So I'm going to right click, and then in here, if I say new and then directory, I can pick this Maven source directories. So pick that, and there you go. Now take this application.properties in here, Command C, and then put it inside, and then OK. Now this application.properties is used for testing. And what we can do now is basically in here, we can remove all of this. So let's remove that. Basically, we can actually keep all of these. But one thing that I want to change is, so in here, the data source URL, as well as the username and password. So the URL, instead of Postgres, this will be H2. And then here we want an in-memory database. So say mem, and then column db, and then semicolon, and then db, and then underscore, and then close underscore delay equals 2, and then -1. So this is some configuration that we can add for our in-memory database, and this should be close, just like that. Then for the username, we want this to be SA, and then password as well SA. And also what I want to set is the driver and then class name, and this will be org dot and then h2 dot and then a driver, just like that. And this is pretty much everything that we want. And in here, instead of say update, let's say create drop. So basically we want to have a fresh database every time we run the tests. Now let's go back to our student repository test, and let's actually just try and run to see if things will work. But I can tell you that it's not going to work, and this is because we need a special annotation. So here, let's just try and run the test class, and there we go. So you can see that we have a null pointer exception, and it says that under test is null. So this is correct, and that is because we are missing an annotation that will basically wire up everything. So basically it will start the application, it will connect, it will get a data source from the configuration that we have, and then we're going to auto wire things. So there we go. Now that we have H2 configured, next let's go ahead and get this test class running and then also add a second test.